first before I chicken out. What did I eat this month? Why did I read this many books? How am I supposed to take a thumbnail? I usually film my wrap-ups on the floor, but I want to be on a table today, so change of scenery. I don't know what I ate this month, but I read 16 books. I have 15 physical one. I have one that's on my Kindle, and all of these books are thick. They're like 500 pages thick. Once again, Storygraph to save the day. Also, didn't do an intro. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video, and welcome to BOOKMAS. I think this is day 3 or 4, but this is going to be my November wrap-up, and I read 16 books. A lot of my ratings were pretty high for these books, so I'm very excited to talk about them. We're gonna start from the very beginning. The very first book that I read in the month of November is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. If you guys follow me on TikTok, I've talked about this before. This book is a dragon romantasy book. If you guys liked Fourth Wing, I would highly recommend this book. This book is about a princess who was bound to 5 dragons when she was born, and because her father was scared of her power, she was about to be killed, but she ended up running away and was in exile. While she was in exile, she built her own city. When she turns into an adult, she wants to get her city back and her dragons back. She ends up working with a commander of a neighboring city, and things go from there. There's a slight enemies to lovers feel with this book. Also, you get lots of really good romance scenes. What I really liked about this book is that I love the characters. The 2 main characters were very strong and independent, but I also really liked the side characters. I just really like their inclusion into the story and also how they help the main characters. Plot-wise and pacing-wise, I felt like everything was great. This ended up being a 4 stars because I felt like the writing lacked a lot. Even though the world building and the fantasy world that she created was great, the writing really pulled down the rating. So that's why I rated this 4 stars. If the writing was so much better, this would have been a 5-star book for me. Some paragraphs were explained for too long, and I felt like some things weren't explained enough. So yes, writing was lackluster, but plot was great. Thankfully, she is going to be publishing this traditionally, and she's going to do a lot of editing with the book, so I'm hoping to see improvement in that, and I'm excited to see it. Next up, we have our first 5-star book. We have Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. Look at my annotations, they're so beautiful. This book was just phenomenal. I felt like I really got to know all of the characters in this book, even the Magnolia Parks characters, and I fell in love with Daisy Hates in this book. I fell in love with Julian Hates. The pain, the suffering, the frustration you go through, the romance, the quotes. It was all very beautiful. The prose was amazing. Now I can understand why people are in love with this book. I know the characters are toxic, and I know they have some things they have to fix, but it feels like you're a part of their world and you kind of want to root for them and their happiness regardless of how bad they act, and that's how beautiful this book is. I cannot say anything else other than the fact that I love this book. It was so good. I'm excited for the next Magnolia Parks book to come out. We read The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber next, and this book is the second book of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. If you guys don't know Once Upon a Broken Heart, you're living under a rock. You follow Evangeline and Jax. Jax is the Prince of Hearts, and Evangeline, she fell in love with someone, and this guy ends up marrying her stepsister, and she wants to stop the wedding. So she makes a bargain with the Prince of Hearts, and for him to stop the wedding, he will get 3 kisses out of his liking, and the story goes from there. The Ballad of Never After is the second book. I feel like in general, the whole Caraval world that you live in feels like Alice in Wonderland vibes. Just very whimsical, very out of pocket, but also you just fall in love with the fantasy world very quickly. This one I love the most. The ending of this book made me gasp. I did not expect that, and so that plot twist just made this a 4.5, I'm pretty sure. Yep. I rated it a 4.5. I feel like maybe because the series was just very whimsical to the point where I don't understand some parts. This whole series will never be a 5-star series for me because of that, but I do agree that the writing is amazing, and that plot twist got me. Next we have King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. The first series I've read from her is A Touch of Darkness, and that's a Hades Persephone retelling, and this one is vampires. This is the Agent Isolde series, and it is about vampires. You follow Isolde, who is a princess of this one country, realm. Adrian is a vampire who has come to conquer all of the cities, and when he comes to her city to conquer her city, in exchange for peace, he takes Isolde to marry as his wife. And so it's like enemies to lovers, and the tension and the pining was freaking amazing. Also, the spice in this, spectacular, wonderful. I like this book because it was very tension filled. I did guess a little bit about the plot, but I felt like they weren't really trying to hide the secret of the plot. It was pretty obvious from the get-go, but I just really liked the flow of the book and how this all went on. I rated this 3.75. It's not exactly like a 4-star because it didn't wow me, but a very strong first book of a series. I would love to get to the second book soon. If you guys want a vampire story, I do highly recommend it, and it's pretty easy to read. Also not that long, less than 400 pages. Next we read, oh my goodness. Wow. We have another 5-star series. I'm going to talk about these two books together. Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I technically rated Binding 13 4.75 and Keeping 13 5, but in general the whole series is a 5 stars. How do I talk about the series without like bawling my eyes out? Because this duology broke me. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I do have a dedicated video reading these two books. This is about Shannon and Johnny. Shannon is the new girl in Johnny's high school. She has a pretty dark upbringing, and Johnny kind of wants to figure it out with her and grow alongside her. You get found family, you get sports romance, you get friendship dynamics, you get abusive families, you get toxic friendships. This was such a beautiful book to read. I loved seeing the progress of Johnny and Shannon's relationship, and I really liked seeing the found family kind of come alive. There were a lot of things in this book. I cannot really talk too much about it, but broke my heart to pieces, put it back together. I will probably never forget this series for the rest of my life, even if I do want to forget it because of how painful it is, but I still really liked it. So next up we have A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. This is the second book of the Lancaster Prep series. They follow basically the Lancaster family, and this one is about Wren and Crew Lancaster. Wren is beautiful but pure little virgin in Crew's grade, and he is dead set on wanting to break that purity vibe running around her. And basically that's the whole story, that's a whole plot line, is that he wants to take her virginity and he is pretty obsessed with it. He actually likes her because of it. From that plot you'll realize that this book is kind of deranged, and it is, but for some reason Monica Murphy's writing just sucks me into the book. You kind of think that Crew sounds like a bad person and he thinks bad things, but actually no, Crew is pretty gentlemanly in this book, and the way he treats Wren, at least like halfway through the book, you realize that he actually really likes her. I'm like in this conflicting period where I don't know if he actually is a good person or a bad person. So I ended up rating this 3 stars. Not as bad as the first one because I feel like Crew is still a pretty good person compared to Whit Lancaster, but I still didn't like how the story went on and the plot. The spice was fine and the writing was fine, but the whole premise of the plot, yeah. Next up we have Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is my first Brandon Sanderson book, and let me tell you that I am so happy that I actually finished reading this book. This one I put off since like September. I finally finished it, which I'm very proud of. This one follows a lot of different characters in this little world, and the magic system in this world follows breath. One person has one breath in them, but they can get breath from people as long as they give it to them willingly. And the more breath you have, the stronger you get. The more you see the world in vivid colors, the more biochromatic things get, and with the breath you can actually implement magic. I felt like the beginning of the book was a little bit slow considering how there needs to be world building, but the more you read, the more fun it gets, and the more you realize that all of these characters play a big role with the coup that's going on in this world. There's a war that's incoming and these people are trying to stop it. Some people are trying to move it forward. You don't really know what's going on until the very end, and it's very fun. I rated this 4 stars because even though I love this fantasy world, I felt like the beginning was just really hard for me to get through, and so that's why this is a 4 stars. The next book I read is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This is my lowest rated book. It is 1.5 stars. In this book you follow a witch. She only does mundane spells to help her plans and to bake. One day she wants to call Flour, but she ends up summoning a demon, and in this whole story she tries to send the demon back, but the demon needs to make a bargain in order to go back, and so he tries to make a bargain with her in exchange for her soul. Why I didn't like it was because the chemistry felt fake, it felt forced, the attraction felt purely physical, and they were supposed to not like each other because she accidentally summoned him. He's not supposed to like her back, but for some reason in the span of a few days, he ends up falling in love with her and her the same with him, and they pretend to be fake dating because she doesn't want to tell her mom that she accidentally summoned a demon. I just didn't like the relationship. The plot wasn't that good. Overall, this didn't hit, and I was really bored reading this. I didn't want to read as soon as they had their first kiss because it just felt weird. Like the romance felt weird, and so 1.5 stars. Next, I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I really like this book. You follow Mallory Greenleaf, who's actually a chess prodigy. She used to play chess when she was young, but when she was 14, something happened and she stopped playing chess overall. When she was 18, she ends up helping her friend in this one chess competition, and she meets Nolan Sawyer, who is the current world chess championship, and she ends up beating Nolan Sawyer, who takes an interest in her because of that, and she gets sucked into the world of chess once again, and you learn why she stopped playing chess 4 years ago. And I really like this book. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing. Obviously, her rom-com books are amazing, and I flew through this book. This book took me like only 4 or 5 hours to finish, and I like the relationship between the two of them, but I also didn't feel like this was the best Ali Hazelwood books. I truly believe that she does better in adult, because this book, even though it was marketed to be YA, this does feel a little bit more mature than YA because there are mentions of adult things going on, and that's why I felt like this book it shouldn't have been a YA book, and so I rated this 4 stars. Still a very good rating because I did have so much fun with this, and I love the romance. I love Nolan Sawyer. I feel like he just has his way of letting her know his feelings, and I love that quiet little silent thing that he does. In general, really like this book, so 4 stars. Oh, I then read another 5-star book, Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I love this book. This book was eye-opening for me. It's about Julian and Dahlia, and this is small town romance. Dahlia used to work in the city. Dahlia used to be engaged to Julian's ex-roommate, or was it ex-friend, but the engagement broke off and she went back to her small town to basically cure her heartbreak, and in there she meets Julian once again. They used to have some sort of history and their family are friends, but they never really got together when they were young. However, they did like each other before. Something happens and Dahlia ends up working with Julian on a house because Julian is like a realtor slash a real estate agent. I'm not really too sure what his exact profession is, and Dahlia and him works on a house. The reason why I love this book so much is because they both individually had problems they had to face. There was a lot of grief in this because Julian lost his dad. Dahlia has to fix her heartbreak from her toxic relationship, and there were a lot of growth, but they grew individually on their own without each other. Their love for each other was kind of like a catalyst, but at the same time they really did heal themselves on their own, and it was really special to see that. I love the family dynamics in this. Both families, Dahlia and Julian's, are just so lovely to see, and I really had a lot of fun with this book. I didn't feel bored at all. I loved all of the quotes in here. The romance was amazing. There was slow burn, there was tension, there was pining. No third act conflict too, which I love. And then I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This book I rated 3.5. Please do not kill me. I didn't like this one because I felt really bored throughout the whole story, and by 60% was when I felt like the story was finally picking up. I also read this on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy, and I felt like the last 40% was just filled with so many things going on that I felt like it was a whole whirlwind of emotions within me. Overall, like the writing and I like the story, and I did feel like Ballad of Never After was stronger in the whole trilogy, which is why I gave this 3.5. It was a happy ending, which I liked, but I felt like the ending wasn't as climactic as the whole story, and so that's why this ended up being a 3.5. I still like the trilogy overall. I just felt like Stephanie Garber really does this with her trilogies. It's the same thing with Caraval. The first book was great, the second book was amazing, and the third book was a letdown. But that's my opinion, and I still will read all of her works because her writing is amazing. Next, I read The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This is a part of the Windy City series, and it's a sports romance type of series. In this book, you follow a basketball player called Ryan and Indy, who's a flight attendant. Ryan is the brother of the female main character of the first book called Mile High. I read that book. I didn't like it. I also don't own it physically because I read it on Wattpad, but I heard a lot of great things about this one, which is why I ended up picking it up. And I would say that this book was better, much better than the first one. I rated this 4 stars because I really liked the romance, and this romance really pushed the story forward. A lot of it wasn't as interesting, which is why it's 4 stars, but the romance in this and Ryan Shaw was just so dreamy. He is the perfect book boyfriend. He is a gentleman. He is an acts of service type of guy, and it was so sweet to see all of the things he did for Indy, and also pushing Indy to change for the better, pushing Indy to stand up for herself, all of that. I loved seeing that. I loved seeing the both of them open up to each other. After the bit where they got together, I did feel a little bit bored. Also, I didn't explain what this book was about, but Indy recently broke up with her 7-year-long relationship boyfriend. She has nowhere to go because she shared an apartment with her ex-boyfriend. Indy is best friends with Ryan's sister, and so his sister told Indy to just move into Ryan's apartment. He basically is never there because he travels for basketball, and Indy also travels with the hockey team as a flight attendant. Ryan allows it. Indy ends up moving in. It was very sweet to see it. I love it. The next book I read is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I rated this a 3.5. This is a fantasy world where jade plays a big role. Jade is stolen, traded, bought, used, wielded in this country of Kekoa. There's a city called Janloon, and in Janloon there are 2 clans, 2 rivaling clans. It's called the No Peak Clan and the Mountain Clan. Both of them are jade wielders. In this world, you can either be sensitive to jade or not. And if you're sensitive to jade, you can use it as per usual. But if you're not sensitive to jade and you use it, you'll end up getting the itches where you basically scratch yourself to death. With jade, you can use it if you have the genes for it. But however, if you use it regularly and you stop using it for a while, you get withdrawals. So jade kind of feels like a drug in this sense. And with the story, you just follow 2 rivaling clans as they figure out this new drug called Shine that is circulating around the country that allows other people without the genes for jade to actually use jade. And it's a lot of politics, a lot of clan fights, a lot of action. It's a really fun first book of a series, but I did feel like it was a lot of info dumping and a lot of world building. If you guys are not fantasy readers, I don't believe that this is going to be fun for you guys because it's a lot of information. But I was very happy that I ended up reading this because I do want to read the whole trilogy. I do believe that if you guys want to get into Jade City, read it throughout the month or like in snippets. Don't be like me and forced to read it in 1 week. The best reading experience is to pace it out. Also really love the characters in this. I came to really like the characters in this book, and you focus more on the No Peak Clan characters, but I would love to see the characters of the Mountain Clan as well. And yeah, love the characters, love the growth in this, love the family dynamics. It was fun. The next book I read that I didn't put on my story graph is Promises We Meant to Keep by Monica Murphy. 3rd book on the Lancaster Prep series. This one follows Sylvia Lancaster and Spencer Donato. Sylvie is the little sister of Wit, and Spencer is the best friend of Wit. They used to like each other when they were young, but something happened and they cut off contact. Years later, they met again in Wit's wedding and they strike another relationship after that. The book was 2 stars. I didn't like this book. I felt like the romance was forced. I couldn't understand the attraction between the 2 of them. I felt like it was mostly physical. They both are so flawed and they don't have any redeeming qualities on themselves. That's why I rated it 2 stars. I do have a reading vlog on this, so if you guys want to see more of my opinions, you guys can check that out. The last book I read, which actually I did just finish today this morning. This is a 5-star book. It's Babel by R.F. Kuang. If you guys don't know what Babel is about, you basically follow Robin Swift, who is half Cantonese and half white, and you follow his journey from an orphan in Canton to being a translator in Oxford in Babel. This book is marketed to be historical fiction and fantasy, but it feels more like historical fiction slash non-fiction slash literary fiction. You guys can see from my annotations that I love this book. I felt like this book was a very monumental piece of book that I have never read before. Even though this technically does follow the main character Robin, you also see a lot of different characters that centers around his world, and you follow their story and you see their character develop and you see the growth, you see the way they think, the way they act. And a lot of things happened in here that I cannot talk about because it'll be a spoiler, but it was very eye-opening. A lot of plot twists, a lot of talk about language and translation and how translating is such a different meaning to what we have in this world now. And as somebody who is trilingual, I understand completely how Robin feels as half white and half Cantonese in Oxford 1800s. And this book is historical fiction because it happens in the period of colonialism, and so seeing all of that come into play and seeing the way this book kind of went through colonialism and racism and sexism in this world, I was at awe. I was completely speechless by the ending, but it felt so fulfilling and it was just a masterpiece. I don't know why I put this off, and I don't know why I didn't read it earlier, because this book was so good. I think I read this in a very, very great period of my life, and so I don't care what people say, Babel is a great book. I will forever remember this book, and I'll forever remember how much it has changed the way I think and the way the morals in these books completely throw me by surprise. I don't think I can explain my feelings about this well, but just to let you guys know that I love this book. That is the end of my November wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. If you guys read any of the books in this video, don't forget to comment down below what you guys think about those books, and don't forget to keep a lookout on all the other videos I'll be uploading on BOOKMAS, because I will be uploading every day from December 1 to December 12. So there will be a video tomorrow and there was a video yesterday. And yeah, that is it for this video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.